Welcome to the Infidel, podcast of the damned, the weekly companion show of the Infidel News. Join us as we discuss this week's religious accounts from an atheist perspective. From Timbuktu to Toledo, from Kathmandu to Canada, from Bangalore to Bangladesh. We deplore, you deride. And here are your hosts, Dave and Nicole.
Hello, and welcome to show number 7 of the Infidel podcast of the damned. I'm your host, J. David Coor, atheist, author, and aluminum anthropod. And with me is my co-host, Nicole Simard. Hello, Nicole.
Hey, how's it going?
Today is Wednesday, October 22nd, 2014, and today we'll be changing things up from our usual format because also joining us today is a special guest, Scott Lane. Welcome to the show, Scott.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Scott is a new, not a new atheist, but he's a new voice in atheism who came to prominence through a news story that we ran, not through a story that we ran, but through a story which we covered that was already a story last May. What we'll do is we'll show you that story in just a moment so you'll understand Scott's involvement, and then we'll get around to talking to Scott. But before we do that, Nicole is up in Canada, and he wants to, we're going to talk a little bit about the goings-on today up in Ottawa.
Okay, I thought it was kind of important to mention it, especially since in the past I've always talked about the importance of having imams in the country, in our countries, imams that talk against jihad and who talk, about respect for life and that kind of stuff. This week we've had two events over here in Canada that link in with that, because we've had on Monday in Quebec a guy who was a recent convert to Islam. He converted in 2013 and decided that he wanted to have his own private jihad, or at least answer in his own way to the ISIL call, for people revolting and taking action in Western countries. So he did that, and what he did is he sat in a parking lot and waited for a soldier to show up, and it seems he may have been waiting for about 2 hours. And then finally, when he saw a couple of soldiers walk by, he ran them over with his car. And so one of the soldiers is dead. That was Warrant Officer Patrice Vincent, who was killed on Monday. He was 53 years old. Here's his picture. He was killed, run over by Martin Couture-Rouleau, who goes by the name of Ahmed le Converti, which means the converted Ahmed. And the police shot him dead after a chase. His car drove over the road and then into a ditch. And when he got out of the car, he was shot dead by the police. And then today we had somebody similar. It's been confirmed that the guy's name is Michael Zehef Bibo, a 32-year-old who has also been, I don't know yet how long he's been converted to Islam, but he is a convert, and he's just like the Martin Couture-Rouleau. They were both considered high-risk travelers and under surveillance by the government. Not constant surveillance, but they were under surveillance. Their passports were seized and considered one of 90 dangerous people in Canada. And he went over to the Canadian Parliament. He went first by the monument to the previous wars, to all the Canadian soldiers who died in the past, and shot the soldier who was standing on guard there and killed him. And then after that made his way into the Canadian Parliament building, where he was killed by the what we call the sergeant at arms. The sergeant at arms is a title given to somebody who escorts the parliament, the members of parliament when they walk into the building, and when they go to hold, I don't know, not hold court. I don't know how, but when they want to start a session of parliament, he walks them in, and so those. The one who killed today's men is Kevin Vickers, and he has a very prestigious past. He's been a police officer for 29 years. He's been working in. He's got a background in security services for dignitaries and even royal family. So he's somebody who's he's got a very good background. He's been working hard in everywhere he went. For example, a few years ago, we had some trouble between white fishermen in Nova Scotia and Indian fishermen. And he worked hard to appease the tensions between the two groups. And even the Aborigines said that he had worked very hard and gave him recognition for the work he has done. And this is not the first time a sergeant at arms in Canada has distinguished himself for bravery. Back 30 years ago, in the province of Quebec, a soldier had was very upset with what was going on between the government and soldiers themselves, how they were being treated. And so he walked into the parliament. In those days, they didn't have security like we have today. And he walked into the House of Assembly where they meet, the room, and there the MPPs weren't there yet, the member of provincial parliament, but there was a lot of civil servants. And he started shooting. He killed 3 of them and wounded 12. And when the local sergeant at arms found out, he went out from his office, went into the assembly room, and he was shot at by the soldier, whose name was Martin. Sorry, I was wrong with the first one. The one who was driving. The one 30 years ago was René-Marc Jalbert, who was the sergeant at arms, and the upset soldier was Denis Lortie. And Denis Lortie, when he saw the sergeant at arms walking in, he started shooting at him. So the sergeant at arms hid in a corner and then told the guy, yelling that he was. Sorry, my iPhone is acting up. And so he yelled at the soldier that he was a veteran himself, that he had been a soldier, and if he could be given a chance, he would go and show him his ID so that, as 2 soldiers, they could talk respectfully. And so the soldier did do that. And
I can't search for that.
Stupid phone.
Siri gone wild.
Yeah.
So he went and showed his that he was a veteran, showed his ID, and then was able to talk down the soldier. And he said, "Well, let's go in my office and keep talking." He brought the guy into his offices, and and by doing this, he made himself a hostage. And after 4 hours of negotiating, he got the guy to surrender to police. So he got, the highest decoration available to a civilian, and so, got a horrible situation settled without any violence, and he did it very bravely. So, to me, today it's important to talk about what happened both in the past and in the present, and also the bravery that those guys show when they are sergeant at arms. It looks like just a decorative position, somebody who walks in this, the officers, the members of parliaments, but they also work very hard. They're in charge of security.
Yeah. Well, it's like the Swiss Guard in the Vatican is one. They dress goofy, but they're some of the most badass fighters that you'll find. They're so just because something's ceremonial doesn't mean that the person doing the job isn't. They generally have to be trained better, like because he's a military escort basically.
Yep, exactly. So anyway, so that was what I really wanted to talk about today. And now we can go on to our story.
Okay. Before we do that, I want to explain to any viewers who might be coming new to the show or any listeners, what we do normally is we do current news stories, and we do 3 a show, and we we show the story, and then we discuss it for a little while, and then we show another story, we discuss it for a little while, and then and those are stories that run in the upcoming episode of our news broadcast, which is on Atheism TV. But this week we're changing things up a little bit. We're going to rerun a story that we ran back in May because the person who's mentioned in the story is here with us today. So Nicole, whenever you're ready, we can go ahead and watch the story.
Okay, here we go.
Alleging religious discrimination, a lawsuit brought by the parents of a Thai Buddhist student in Sabine Parish has been taken up by the ACLU of Louisiana. The boy, identified as CC in court documents, is the son of Scott and Sharon Lane. He enrolled in the 6th grade at Negrete High School at the beginning of the school year, where the suit alleges he became the target of harassment, not only by fellow students, but by teachers and administration members as well. The suit directly names a biology teacher, Rita Rourke, who allegedly called Buddhism stupid and routinely included on her tests, in all caps, such questions as "Isn't it amazing what the blank has made?" followed by numerous exclamation points. The suit also alleges that when the Lanes complained about Rourke to Sabine Parish Superintendent Sarah Ebar, they were told that this is the Bible Belt, and it was suggested that CC change his religion or transfer to a district with more Asians. In addition to the harassment, the school also openly proselytises on their digital marquee, and the school lobby boasts a large portrait of a white Jesus. An official response from the Sabine School Board does not deny any of the allegations, but reads in part, a lawsuit only represents one side's allegations, and the board is disappointed that the ACLU chose to file suit without even contacting it regarding the facts.
That's it. And before we start talking to Scott Lane, I wanted to say that we've got a picture on our background today, and that picture shows the lobby of the school, the hall, and right over the doors of that public school, you have a great big picture, a big portrait of Jesus.
I always thought it was Michael McDonald.
It doesn't look like a very well done portrait. Did somebody at the school paint it?
It was I found out later, there was one of the children had painted it like a year or 2 before, and they had a big presentation. Actually, one of the news services broke out all the information, and in one of the articles they wrote, they showed some pictures in the school gym. They celebrated this child that had painted the picture and put the picture up there. One of the things that came through it, we don't want to take away from the children that do art, and the children have a right to their religious freedoms in school. And so they wanted to keep the picture somewhere, so we agreed that there can be a wall or an area for different kids to put whatever art they want, but it has to be all the children's art and be rotated through there. So it's not making a religious statement.
Yeah, because it doesn't matter that it was a student that that did the painting.
No.
It's still a violation to highlight a portrait of Christ in the hall. That's a violation.
And if you put it in context with all the other pictures, all the other posters, everything else hanging around the wall, it's an obvious violation. The whole school was set up to look that way. You couldn't walk through the school without seeing Bible verses on the wall, pictures of people praying, pictures of Jesus. It looked like Sunday school or a church when you went into this public school.
Yeah, that's pretty common in a lot of parts of the South. It's almost as though, I mean, they know that they know the law, and they know they're violating the law, and they almost feel as if it doesn't apply to them because they are a majority. But that's the whole reason that the law exists, is so that the majority doesn't get to dictate to everybody else what they're going to believe.
Exactly. I mentioned to you a few minutes ago that about a year ago, a little over a year ago, I was one of those people that just didn't care. I would have called myself non-religious until I saw what it actually does to children. I brought my new wife and my stepson here from Utah. I promised them that they would be accepted. I promised them that the school would take care of them. It was against the law. They couldn't violate his rights, his religious freedoms. They couldn't pick on him for that. I couldn't imagine them doing that. And afterwards, I started seeing, or after our case came out, we started putting all the information together for our case. I started noticing this is happening not just here, but happening everywhere. We've already won our case, but the reason I'm still here is because I see this going on, and it's happening to children all over the country. And most of these children and most of these parents are just shutting up and taking it, because if they make any waves, they're going to get run off by the community. They're going to face all kinds of issues. Stores are going to treat them bad. Every time they go in, they may have had a friend at the store. Now they're going to ignore them. When you go to the school, you're going to get treated and pushed off into the corner. Your children are going to be bullied by other kids. This creates a very big problem. And the biggest people that get hurt are our children. Somebody's got to defend our children.
So, Scott, can you tell us when and how it started?
Oh, sure. I apologize. I kind of
No, that's
jumped right
okay.
in.
We're the ones who asked the questions.
A couple years ago, I remarried this woman and her stepson. I include marrying him too. We kept two houses, one in Salt Lake City and one in Louisiana for a while. And then we merged together our household and brought them down here, and we all moved in together. And my stepson started school with my children at the end of the summer break. When they went into school, we made all the arrangements. They knew he was Buddhist. They knew he has never eaten meat his entire life. He's a vegetarian. They knew all these things. We went and tried to make sure all the pieces were put together. Everybody was aware, and nobody would be shocked. He started going to school. The first day, he was excited to go to school. And then after that, it just started going downhill. And within literally just a couple of days, by the end of the first week, we couldn't get him dressed to get to school. He would miss the school bus intentionally, running off. We'd have to get him in the car. His mom would have to drive him to school. And at first, we thought maybe he was acting out because the move was hard or something. And we were trying to figure out what it was. That first weekend, my kids were at their mother's house that weekend. But the following Thursday, they came here. And on that same day, CC, my stepson, brought one of his tests in. And my daughter pointed out what was going on in the class. And she told us that on that test, that I think you mentioned, and anybody can go to the ACLU website, just Google Lane versus Sabine Parish School Board, and you can find all the court documents on one of the websites. And we've uploaded a lot of documents. You've got one right there. If you look at the bottom of that test, isn't it amazing what the blank has made? Then like there's 20 or 30 exclamation points after it. In the bottom, she had written in red ink, Lord, marked it wrong. And my daughter explained to me that she came over, leaned over his desk, and berated him. How can you not put anything in there? How can you not know what to put in? And initially, and it gets confusing with all the reports going on, initially that was a test question. It was not extra credit. It was the last test question on every test. After we complained, they changed it to an extra credit test question. Then it went farther, and they knew there were some major issues. Then they took it off the test, and then they gave extra credit to kids. This is right up until right before they settled. They gave extra credit to the kids that would handwrite it in. So they were pushing that same question, or the previous year they had Bible verses, I found out. That same question was on every test in that class. We ended up pulling CC out of that school. It got really bad. The other children started bullying him, calling him stupid, just along with the teacher. She set the whole tone. I think one of her comments was, how did she say it? People are stupid if they don't believe in God, or something like that, to the whole class, and all the class agreed. And after that, they called him stupid because he didn't believe in God. My daughter stood up for him, tried to explain that he's Buddhist. He had never even heard of God. It was just not something he was around. He didn't have the problem in Utah. So it was, and there's Mormons. And so from my point of view, I'm thinking Salt Lake City, the whole state is run by Mormons. You're not going to get any more religious than that. I was shocked to find out the South, with like 30 or 40 different religions all running around, was entirely more religious than the Mormon state. So I got to say that for the Mormons, at least they keep it mostly out of the school, even though they get out of class for an hour a day to go to Mormon training. But they have to go across the fence to the building right next to the school to get their training. Sorry, I'll throw that plug in. My issue is our public schools are not a place for any religion. Everybody in this country has an entirely different religion. When I mention there are 30 different types of religions in my parish, there literally are 20 to 30 different kinds of religions, and no two churches share the same religious belief. So even though I'm atheist, if I was religious, I still wouldn't want somebody trying to tell my kid they need to handle snakes. I don't want that guy from Kentucky telling him to handle snakes.
Right.
Sorry.
That's actually the whole foundation of the First Amendment, and the idea of a wall of separation of church and state is from Thomas Jefferson at Danbury Baptist. I couldn't even say it, but yeah, the Danbury Baptist, because it was Christians worried about being suppressed by other Christians.
Correct. It's funny that Christians don't even know their own history.
No.
My father is a Southern Baptist preacher. My father was the pastor of the church right next to the school back in the 80s. My mother taught biology in this school back in the late 80s. My mother is a young earth creationist. My parents are. But she didn't put it into school. Or she swears to me she didn't teach it in school. And I want to believe her. She's my mother. So until somebody gives me evidence to the contrary, I'm going to believe her.
So that question, the question, isn't it amazing what the blank has done, was on a science test, right?
It was on every science test, not
right.
just
So wouldn't the correct answer be the gravitational field?
The first thing we told him, because he's Buddhist, we told our stepson, well, put Lord Buddha on there if you got to put something, which...
That wouldn't be accurate in Buddhism.
No, Buddha didn't invent anything. Nobody believed Buddha was a god or anything like that. But we knew it kind of ticked the teacher off. And that was, I guess, the day before we pulled him out of school. When we went to see the superintendent, and she actually provided that test. Look at what your stepson did, or look at what your son did. She went to point out how he had missed everything on the test. He just basically quit answering the test. What's he going to do in this class? He's being called stupid. He's not paying attention anymore. He's getting bullied by all the kids. By this time, on the way to school every morning, his mother was having to haul him in. She would have to stop about a mile before the school, pull over the side. He was throwing up. I mean, this was the degree of, what's the word I'm looking for right now? The emotional trauma he was going through. He was sick at his stomach to the point of throwing up. I've been upset and nervous about things, but I haven't thrown up. To make a little 12-year-old kid throw up on the side of the road, it's pretty bad. He told his mom, I think it was the last day we took him in, that he would rather die than have to wake up and go to school in the morning.
How did the school board superintendent react to all that?
When I first found out from my daughter, we called the superintendent. She assured us that that's illegal. You can't do any of these things. She said she would take care of it. And I started thinking maybe I should have called the principal first. And I told her I'd go see the principal on Monday. I went to the principal that Monday. Um, Before we got to speak to the principal, we saw Cole rolling down the hallway. The teacher had just called him a little crybaby and some other things and sent him to the office. And so we took him and left, went straight to the superintendent. She knew what we were there for. She made an appointment for us to come back that afternoon. Then we went in there. She showed us all the tests that he started refusing to answer anything on or just making up answers. And we said, yeah, look at this, the bottom question. Quit looking at all the wrong answers. Look at what this question is on the bottom. It's illegal. You cannot put that on a test in public school. And then she started going on, we live in the Bible Belt. Now in Canada, I know you have a different constitution, but in the United States, it doesn't matter if I live in Arizona, if I live in Ohio, or I live in a Bible Belt, I still fall under the Constitution of the United States of America. And every state has a constitution that basically has a similar right or article in it that gives us religious freedoms. So
And even if they don't, they're still bound by the 14th Amendment.
By the 14th Amendment and by the First Amendment. They have to follow both. No matter where you live, we fall under the Constitution of the United States. She didn't want to listen to that. I kept trying to point out the difference. She kept ignoring it. She told us that if we lived in a different country, we'd have to get used to whatever it was their religion was. I tried to explain to her that in the United States, we don't have a state religion.
Yeah.
Can't have a state religion. She pointed out that she didn't get offended when her Oriental person who cut her toes had a Buddha statue in her shop. I tried to explain the difference between free enterprise and government. She wouldn't have it. When we went to her, it was a complete flop of what she had told us the week before. At the time, I was so pissed I didn't even think about that. I've had time to think about it since. I don't know if she received so much pushback from the school board and everybody else that she said, well, if they're going to push me to go this direction, let's see where we go. Or if she really believed it. I don't know. But she used the toast. She told us that, or she insinuated, do you really have to raise them as Buddhist? Can't you raise them as another religion? And why would I change my religion to appease the school? My wife was offended. I was so...
adult people pick a religion because they believe in it, not because it's more convenient.
That was what I understood, but I guess in Louisiana we're supposed to just pick whatever's popular.
I think generally it is really a matter of convenience. When you really get down to it, there's no, there's a reason why all the Muslims live in the Middle East, all the Buddhists live in Asia, all the Christians live in Europe and the United States, and there's a reason for that. And it's mostly convenience. It has nothing to do with they just all happen to congregate there. It's not like
One of the things I noticed on that, it is convenient. I found out a lot of people that claim to be religious or claim to be Christian, they don't have the first clue about what their religion tells them.
No, they don't.
They can't. What's the Pew research that came out a couple months ago or last year? Was it less than 20% of people claiming to be Christian can name the 4 Gospels, the
Right.
first 4 books in the New Testament? My dad went to seminary for like 10 years of my childhood. I grew up learning about Greek. I learned about history. That's why I'm an atheist. I learned too much, I think.
Yeah. That's what they say. The more you learn about the Bible, the more likely you are to convert to atheism, because it doesn't. But yeah, if you take certain things in the Bible and tell a Christian that the Bible says this, they'll deny it because they can't believe that it says. They can't believe that it says, "Blessed is he who smashes the children of his enemies, children against rocks." They can't believe that it doesn't say that, but it does.
It does. It talks about, God can't help defend Israel against iron chariots. I mean, he gives up and walks away if they got iron chariots. I don't know what he does with tanks or armed personnel carriers, but I sure don't want the guy on my side if he can't handle a chariot.
Yeah.
I've got this really big desire. One of the things I want to do, I'm spinning off subject here for a minute, one of the things I want to do the next time a school or courthouse wants to put the 10 Commandments up, I want them to put the actual 10 Commandments that were made into the covenant with Israel. Not the first 10 that were smashed and really didn't get used for anything. I want to put the 10 that include, thou shalt not boil a kid in its mother's milk. I think that would go over really good in school.
Yep.
That's an easy one to avoid, though.
I've never had a problem with that one.
But that's one thing that's interesting about the Catholic Church is they don't encourage people to read the entire Bible from page to from the front to back. They don't encourage people to do that. And actually, I remember as a child, my mother telling me one day, that if you do that, it makes you go mad.
That it would.
I've always wanted to try to assemble a Bible that's chronological, so that it would have like Acts and Corinthians and all that before the Gospels, because they came before the Gospels, and put Mark first before Matthew and Luke, so that people would read it chronologically and see how it built on itself.
Yeah.
Because the way it is, I think the reason that it's the way it is so that you don't see how it was built on itself. Because there's no reason for it to be in the order that it's in.
No. If you put it, I guess, when you're looking at it chronologically of when it was written, or chronologically of the stories?
Chronologically of how it was it was written. Yeah, even if you did that with the Old Testament, you would have Deuteronomy at the end, and probably parts of Exodus would be switched around even, because I don't think that the story of Moses was actually written after the story of Abraham. I think it predates. I
think the Pentateuch, the first 5 books, when they were written into the Hebrew Bible, they were written 600 to 400 BC. Is that correct? Do you guys know
that sounds about right.
I've got something here, yeah. Because I'm reading a book about how the Bible was written, and yes, the first 5 books of Pentateuch was written, some people believe, around the 5th to 6th BC. However, some people go as recently as 4th to 2nd BCE. But the thing is, when we keep saying that there are contradictions in the Bible, it's because they were written by 2 different groups of Israelis. There was, how in the Bible they refer to God as either Elohim or Yahweh. So when it refers to Elohim, it's because it's been written by the tribe of Israel. And when it says Yahweh, it's a version that was written by the tribe of Judah. So the north and the south part of Israel, they separately wrote different versions of of their Bible, and then after that, some writers put it all together as one book.
Mm-hmm. Also, I was thinking, it's kind of like if the north and south, 400 years from now, wrote their version of the Bill of Rights, they would look completely different.
Yes.
We sure wouldn't have the religious freedom. We wouldn't have the First and 14th Amendment in the South.
Right. Yeah. There's a story that we're going to show in a minute that's a clip from Fox News that was from earlier this week. And it's a story very similar to the story that you are just experienced, but it's in Texas. It was Texas, right, Nicole?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's amazing how similar the 2 stories. Go ahead and run that. Let's show that, and then we can come back and talk about that.
Atheists are threatening to sue a Texas school district over religious plaques that have hung in front of 2 elementary schools for nearly 2 decades. Do they have a point? Our next guests say no. We are joined now by Tiffany Davlin and Pastor Justin Kaufman, who live in that area, and both of you have kids at these schools. So I want to start with you first, Tiffany, because we've been covering this for a while. On Monday, the school board or the trustees were supposed to vote whether or not they should take down these plaques. They decided not to vote on that. So how do you feel about this? Why are you still fighting for this?
Well, I think just because there wasn't a vote or a decision made, I think that this is probably just the quiet before the storm, and we do have a vested interest in this, and we don't think that now is the time to remain silent.
Okay, so let me paint the picture for folks who are joining us right now. This is an atheist group out of Wisconsin, Madison, Wisconsin. It's more than 1,000 miles away from where you live in Texas, and they are saying they have a problem with what's happening in your school district. Tiffany, are the majority of people that are living there, majority of the parents, for those plaques and like what's written on those plaques?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Let me read what's on the plaque, and then, Justin, I'm going to get to you. This is what the plaques say. Dedicated to the year of our Lord, 1997, to the education of God's children and to their faithful teachers in the name of the Holy Christian Church. So, Justin, as a chaplain in the city, and you have kids at that school, it seems like such a benign message to me.
Yeah, you know, we're all about, you know, wanting to see the cause of Christ go further. We want to see the cause of Christ in more public arenas in the American culture. We don't want to take things away from. We want to see Christ in our schools, and that's what I, as a parent and as a community minister, am all about.
Yeah, this is the same group that's attacked other schools in other states, the same group that went after the coach at Clemson University for holding voluntary Bible studies for the football team. And I think growing up in the South, people in Wisconsin, these atheists in other cities need to understand the culture in the South and how church is a very integral part of our childhood and growing up. And it's a very important part for the Southern culture. So, Tiffany, do you want to touch on that? Do you feel angry at the fact that other individuals in other states are trying to change what's happening in your children's elementary school?
I do. I am bothered by the fact that a group can come into our community, which is a strong majority Christian community, and say what we can or cannot have. So to me, that is very frustrating.
Attempt to bully us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, Justin, you touched on it, the war on Christianity. Well, thank you both so much for waking up this early to talk to us and share your stories.
Well, thank you for having us.
Coming up, if you don't pay your water bill, you don't get your water. But that's not what the United Nations thinks.
There is so much fail in that piece. It's just, there's no place to, where do you even begin with that? That's just, she missed everything.
Oh, the majority rules. The majority's able to bully anybody. But don't you bully the majority with the law.
The law, with what's right.
And the journalist is so, serious and, how can I say, respectful of other people's positions and neutral in her way. You know, she says, I think growing up in the South, they have to understand our culture. Like, excuse me, the journalist is actually taking a position very, very good of, I'm really surprised, right? That somebody at Fox.
Yeah, that is that is, for one thing, they all every time a story like this comes up, they go after the fact that the FFRF is based in Wisconsin, as if that matters, because the FFRF doesn't take. They don't go around looking for these things. Somebody brings it to them. There's a local person in that community who complained to the FFRF, and the FFRF is acting on their behalf.
That is correct.
If that wasn't the case, there would be no standing. The FFRF doesn't have standing to come in on their own and just say, you have to take this down.
So you just hit a key point. Standing. I mean, we have a lot of problems, and it's like this school over in Texas, like our school. There's another school going on I see them every week. I see another 2 or 3 pop up. A student, you have to have a student in the school that has standing. They have to continue staying in that school. As soon as you bring this case up or bring it to bear, that child is considered an outcast. That child is bullied. The family's pretty much run out of town. All of a sudden, there's nobody withstanding. It's hard to continue fighting these when the school and communities come down against these people and run them out of town.
How is it for your own kids? Like you had one that the adopted child, your foster son. But the thing is, how about your other children? How was it for them in school?
It was initially really hard. They caught a lot of flack for a long time on it. We kept quiet about the filing the court case. We stopped the court case. It was going to be filed in November, but we decided to wait until January because the war on Christmas would have took precedence, and everybody said we were trying to sue Christmas. So we put it off until January. And I mean, from a family, it tore us up. I mean, we're in the middle of this very controversial time in our whole family. Do we stay? Do we leave? What do I do? How do I protect my children? My children that are still going to this school are bringing me tons of evidence every week home. And I know as soon as I release it and we go to the court, my kids are going to be in trouble with their friends. My two oldest kids in that school, one was a senior last year and one was in 9th grade. They were able to mostly write it out. The 9th grader caught a little flack, but the 12th grader, he's really outspoken and he kind of stands out on his own anyway, so he didn't catch any extra. But my daughters caught most of the flack, specifically my daughter that shared the class with my stepson. She lost friends by that time of her standing up for my stepson. The teacher had started bullying her. All the other kids quit associating with her in school because they didn't want the teacher to see them being friends with her. They would be friends on the weekend, but during school, they wouldn't even talk to my daughter. So it's really rough. And then when we filed, it got really bad for a couple of weeks until we actually got our set when we went in to meet for the settlement. After that, they had to protect my children. And after that, it all started getting better. But until that point, everything's up to run the family out of town. When we first filed the case, we were given the option to homeschool my stepson, pull him out of school, or drive him at our own expense 30 miles or 30 minutes away. It's 20-something miles. One way to school, to a different school, where they had, quote, more Asians, which I think there were 2 last year. Yeah, it was I think it's a class 3 school, but so 2 more Asians out of, what, 400 kids? But anyway, that school is doing a very good job. Even then, they went out of their way to try to make my stepson fit in and feel comfortable. There were a few things they've tried to stop the kids from. Kids will be kids, and we can expect that. We can understand that. It's a time for educating children. They're coming from parents that might be uneducated on other religions. And so these young kids coming into school, this is a perfect opportunity to educate them that just because somebody's a Buddhist or another religion, it doesn't mean they're a bad person. And this was a very good chance to educate. And the schools helped do that. They saw that, the new school. It's kind of funny now, but last year they would take their crosses and try to touch my stepson with their cross to see if he would melt. I guess they thought Buddhists were vampires. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
How does your stepson like his new school?
He actually he loves the new school now. He actually loves his new school. He doesn't want to leave. He loves being here. We have no problem getting him up. When he gets dressed in the morning, he's ready before the school bus shows up. He comes home in a good mood. They're doing a really good job at the new school. The old school, where my children still go to, they have a new principal, and he's very, very hardcore by the book. I thought we were going to have problems at first, but I think he's holding to the book, and he's trying to be by the book for everybody, and I can respect that.
So that your kids are still in the same school except for Cece?
Correct. My one graduated, so I still have 3 more kids at that school. Their mother wants to keep them there for right now.
And you were talking about a settlement. Who is there to make sure that they are actually, respecting the settlement, that they are going by what they said they were going to do?
For 10 years, they're going to be monitored. They could be, the ACLU can come in. Anybody file a complaint, it'll be contempt of court if they get caught. The initial complaint that we've agreed to, if we see them violating something, we notify the ACLU. The ACLU notifies the school's insurance attorneys, they notify the school, they try to correct it within a day or so. If they don't correct it, then it becomes a contempt of court, or certain things will automatically go into contempt. I don't know all the legal details. Hopefully we never find all those aspects out.
Has anybody made an effort to explain to the students at the school why this was a necessary thing, and not just some vindictive atheist trying to suppress their religious rights?
You know, I don't think so. Other than my children know most of the kids, and so they've tried to explain it. My two daughters were still Christian, and one of them, the one that defended CC, it really made a difference in her life, because she saw how people can get treated, and to be honest with you, it really wasn't a good promotion for Christianity in front of my children.
Right.
To see how they could treat somebody else that was basically a good person.
Right. Well, like Gandhi said, I like your Christ. I don't like your Christians.
Yeah.
It's really not a reflection on Christianity how Christians act. Just like it's not a reflection on Islam how jihadists act. And that, so it's a lot of atheists do tend to fail to make that distinction when they're talking about the issues. We, I think, as a group, need to be cognizant of that, because it puts us in a better position to make our arguments if we're not saying, like it's like when a Christian will say that Stalin was an atheist. That doesn't mean that I'm going to kill 16 million people.
What does that really mean? I mean, there were a lot of people that are atheists. Some of them were good, some of them were bad.
Right.
Just like every other religion.
Exactly.
And I'll be honest with you, my parents are very religious. I consider them good people. I don't agree with their religious views, but they're good people. I know my father has a very high degree of integrity. He believes what he's telling people. I also know, I have a friend that's a ex-Pentecostal, Jerry DeWitt. I don't know if you guys know who Jerry DeWitt is. He's been on CNN. He left the Pentecostal church, and he's starting a small, about an hour and a half south of where I live, he's starting a small humanist chapel.
Oh yes, I heard about it. Yeah.
And this guy, he was a Pentecostal preacher for 25 years. He is the most sincere person you will ever meet. A generally, honestly good person. He tried to continue his belief. All the time he was going through his belief, he was trying to help people. And so there are some really good Christians out there that are trying, they're sincere and they want to help people. I don't want to bash those people. I don't want to bash my parents. I don't want anybody to have to change their religion, but that's the key point. Nobody should have to change their religious views in school or in government.
How about your children who are still at that school? Are they saying that creationism is still taught there, or?
No, we don't have any of that. That same science teacher is not teaching creation. She's still there for some reason, but she's not teaching creationism. The only complaint I have, my daughter came home, my youngest daughter came home, she has her this year, and she explained to me that there are a lot of other countries that don't use the metric system. The teacher said so.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, and so I pulled up the two other countries. I said, Liberia is switching and Myanmar is switching. They've already been switching for like 4 or 5 years. We're it. Mm-hmm. And the only reason we're not switching is because, I don't know, why are we not switching again?
I don't know why we're not switching.
The last time I heard, I was reading about that not too long ago, and it has to do with speed. People can't get used to, the speed limit being in kilometers.
I got one for you. Hold on a second. I got to interrupt on this one. The first time I flew up to Ottawa a couple years ago, I landed, got my rent-a-car. I came from Mexico, and it was a last-minute flight in Dallas to switch to Ottawa. So I flew up there. I'm in short pants, got a suit jacket on, suit pants, and that's all the cold weather gear I have. It's minus 20 or something like that. It's really cold, and I'm freezing, and I get out, and I'm trying to drive, and my speedometer on the car is one of those, the electronic one, and it was set for miles per hour. and I'm looking at the speed limit sign saying 100 kilometers per hour, and I'm trying to hit 100 on my speedometer. And I'm thinking, forget these guys. I can't drive this fast in this way.
Yeah. I'll tell you the real reason we haven't switched to the metric system here is because every American thinks they're a libertarian on issues that they're too lazy to deal with. That's all.
It's just arrogance.
Yeah.
I think we're arrogant. We think we've always done it this way. It's got to be better.
Yeah, and the government's not going to tell me I have to change. That's all.
Yeah.
That's all it's about.
When I was reading about the metric system, I read that there is one small part of a state in the South where when they were doing the experiment back in the late 70s and early 80s, they had the distance and the speed limit in kilometers, and they're still doing it there. It hasn't changed. So they're not doing they're using the metric system for the speed and the distance. They're not using like the rest of the country the old imperial system.
Yeah.
So you got one small section of the states that's.
Yeah. Well, I remember those signs. We used to have those signs all over the place that had like the kilometers and the miles. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember, and in Canada, do you still have stop arrête signs? where it's like have stop arrête, like you don't know what in case you don't know what the other word is, you know, you can't tell what a hexagonal sign is. You have to have both words on the sign.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Scott, it's been very interesting having you on the show. Thank you for joining us. We're going to go ahead. We're going to keep you on, though. I'm just letting you, thanking you for talking to us about the situation with CC. We're going to go ahead and show the preview for Christian Glitches. Let me explain to any viewers who don't know. Nicole does a show on his channel called Christian Glitches. And he previews one of those glitches, one of those things on each of our episodes. So, Nicole, why don't you go ahead and tell us what this one's going to be here?
Okay, actually, I'm showing you the whole glitch today. So it's going to be 2 or 3 minutes at the most, but it's about this guy who's found a cure for Ebola so that, you know, he cannot catch it no matter what happens. And before anybody suggests that he is a Poe, I have known him for many years. I've been posting comments on his channel for many years. He is not a Poe. He is genuine. He truly believes what he's going to say.
Dude, I found some information that, it's about free Ebola vaccinations. I wanted to share that with you real quick because it's free. Let's see, where is it? Isaiah 54:17 says, "No weapon formed against me shall prosper." Psalm 91 says, "He who dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty." I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress, my God, in Him I will trust. Surely He shall deliver you from the snare of the fowler and from the perilous pestilence. You know what? Now that I think about it, there is a vaccination for death, too. John 3:16. "For God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son, that whosoever shall believe in Him will not perish but have everlasting life." Are you getting what I'm putting down? Let's see. I had some other ones here. John 17 says, "And this is eternal life, that they may know you, the only true God, and Jesus Christ, whom you have sent." Shall I continue? Are you getting the idea? And, if you want to mock, if you think this isn't true, if you think that, this won't prevent me from getting Ebola, well, y'all are walking around like Thriller, zombies, or you're walking around like Thriller Ebola zombies, I'm going to be healthy in Jesus' name.
So everybody's going to catch Ebola, but him, because he believes in Jesus Christ.
Yeah, that's the problem. That's why the last several popes died. They just didn't believe hard enough. If they would have just believed harder, if Pope John Paul would have just believed harder. Well, it's like those Pentecostals with the snakes. The ones that they believe that
Pentecostal. Those are primitive Baptist.
Yeah.
Primitive Baptists do the snakes. Pentecostals think you can pray on, heal somebody and bring him back from the dead, or pow, presto, you're healed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. By the way, speaking of that, here, this was a post I put on Facebook this week. I was thinking, wouldn't it be hilarious to see somebody walk up to Benny Hinn and just before he lays hands on them and says, "And what's your affliction?" They said, "Ebola."
Yeah.
How far you? Ooh.
Ooh, I ain't touching you.
Yes.
One of my sons wants to go back to Jimmy Swaggart. He wants to do a big show and go down. When he tried to pop him on the forehead, he went, "Whoa, what the heck you doing that for?" or something. I got to tell him to go try that. Tell Jimmy Swaggart he's got Ebola. See how that
Yep.
Yep. Well, okay. I'm going to go ahead and bring the show to an end because we're going on almost an hour. So, Scott, really, thank you very much for joining us. I hope you had a good time with us.
I did. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much.
We enjoyed having you very much. And we'll be looking. When you were on Aaron Raw's show recently, the Raw Man podcast, and did you have anything? I know you're into activism a little bit. Do you have any website or anything that you want to promote while you're on the show here?
No, there is something I'm wanting to work on, and I'm still in the early stages, so I'm just bringing it out right now. Anybody want to help me work with it? I'm kind of busy, so it's one of these things I'm trying to pull in on the side. I'm trying to put a repository together so people can anonymously put any kind of evidence they come up at school. They can even write their statements out. I want a place where people can put those up anonymously so children don't feel like they're going to get berated or run out of town. They can put them up there. I want to make it available for newscasters or reporters to be able to come and see them, but I still want to hold it where it can manage its chain of evidence. There's going to be some legal issues that we've got to follow through, and a couple other issues, but anybody wants to help me out with support, just let me know. If you've got any kind of ideas, I'm open to everything. This is going to be I want to make this free for everybody, so anybody have any ideas on how we can make it free, please, I accept all help.
And how can people contact you?
gscottlane at hotmail.com. You can find me on Facebook, or you can look at Scott Lane in defense of the or at In Defense of the Wall on Twitter.
Okay. I'll put all of those things on the show notes. The show notes are available at infidelpodcast.blogspot.com. Those will be put up later tonight. So if anybody, when you see the show, if you want to make sure you have that information, you can go there and get that. Also, before we go, I wanted to mention Reddit. R Atheism, the subreddit R Atheism, has been having a fund drive for Doctors Without Borders to help with the Ebola situation. They had a goal set for $10,000. They reached their goal. They were, last I looked, they were 4% over goal, but they're still taking donations. So if you have and want to help out with that a little bit, go to Reddit, go to the R Atheism subreddit, and in the sidebar, there's a link. We'll also put the direct link to that fund drive on the show notes. So that'll bring the show to an end. Please make sure that you subscribe to the Atheism TV channel. There you can watch the Infidel News for the Damned, where our talented team of writers and anchors present stories like this and other stories not normally covered in the media. You'll find Atheism TV at youtube.com/atheismtv. The Infidel Podcast of the Damned is a Nicole SD production. Nicole and I would like to recognize and say thank you to True Surge, who did the voiceover used in our intro and gave us permission to use music from his song Lied To as our theme anthem. We'd also like to thank Scott for participating in today's podcast again. Thank you very much, Scott. Nicole's channel is NicoleSD and can be found at youtube.com/NICOLSD. I'm Gamut Man on YouTube, at Gamut Man on Twitter. And my blog and information on my books, including my nonfiction title, Believe It, You Know an Atheist, as well as my mystery novels featuring the atheist detective Lupa Schwartz, can be accessed at tinyurl.com/lupalanding. While there, you can sign up to receive my newsletter. Signing up also entitles you to choose one free ebook title from my collection of 99-cent novellas. Thank you for watching, and Nicole and I will see you next week.
I appreciate all that information. I'll be signing up for a novella.
Oh, good.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.